Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what is going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, back again with you after the Pittsburgh Steelers make their second pick of the Day 2 2020 NFL Draft. Third round, they take outside linebacker Alex Highsmith from Charlotte. And if you're like me, you said, Who? Pass rusher? I don't know. Lance Williams is with me here as always, but joining us now, not Dave Schofield, but Brian Anthony Davis. Brian, what's going on?
I've got the big board here. I've got draft fever still, and I'm kind of loving this Alex Highsmith pick because here's the thing. Last year in the third round, we got a lot of who's when we picked Deontay Johnson to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So yep. I subscribe to the fact that they know a whole heck of a lot more than I do.
Yes.
Okay. So
sometimes more is
you're okay with the pick. You're okay with the pick. That doesn't mean that you necessarily liked it.
Well, here's my thought on this. I was high on Bradley and I figured that would be the guy that they'd be looking at. I knew they were going outside linebacker, edge rusher with this pick. And the reason I knew they were going to do that is because they've got a lot to choose from on offensive line pretty early in round 4. And they've got an opportunity to get a defensive tackle or maybe a safety in round 4. So I'm thinking you need to address edge rusher right here. And there's a couple guys out there, but with Bradley and I being the best one out there, they kind of like this guy a whole lot more than Bradley and I. Just because I haven't heard of him doesn't mean that he's not good. And 21 tackles for loss and 14 sacks are pretty sexy to me.
Yeah, and I did see on ESPN when they made the pick that they quoted some Clemson offensive lineman who said that he was one of the most difficult defensive players to block that they played all season. Now, I don't know if you can take that for what it's worth. Lance, what were your thoughts on the pick?
Well, let me just read. Can I read his strengths and weaknesses from the draft guide that I'm looking at to give some background? It says he rushes low and quick, getting underneath blockers and forcing them to overset, introduces his hips into the rush plan, using subtle movements to get blockers moving, introduced more pass rush moves as his senior year progressed, punches low to high in an upward motion to work off bodies and find the football, revving motor versus the run, used to dealing with chippers and extra attention, looks comfortable on his feet when asked to drop instead of rush, former walk-on who is motivated and self-made. Let me give you some more of his 2019 stats: 75 tackles, 21 and a half tackles for loss, 14 sacks, 1 forced fumbles, 3 pass defense. Let me give you his weaknesses, and this is according to Dane Brugler of The Athletic. Cut up and takes care of his body, but frame and length aren't ideal for NFL edge work. Can get lost in the wash as an edge defender. Needs to better see through blocks at the line of scrimmage. Tends to flow with the action and abandon his gap. Instead of reading the backfield, move-to-move counter sequence in his rush requires maturing. Snap anticipation needs maturing with 4 offside penalties in 2019.
There you go. That's the breakdown. I don't know. I don't know. If you were to say, like, okay, have you heard of this player from the SEC? You're like, yeah, I think I've heard that guy. I might have seen him play at some point in time during a random Saturday that I sat down to watch 5 minutes of college football. I did not see Charlotte play at all this year. I did not know. Don't
broadcast. Are they? No, I'm not going to lie. I never saw the Charlotte Hornets. I never saw the Charlotte Hornets, let alone Charlotte's football team. I mean,
back in 1970, Lance, when you were watching Southern University, do you remember watching Mel Blount?
No, not in 1970 because I probably was about 6 months of age. But to your point, their job is to scout. Their job is to find these guys.
Absolutely, that's what I was trying to tell everybody on the last show. We don't have scouting departments.
It's a narrative pick, and what Dave was saying is a lot of times there are narratives that are out there when it comes to picks. Clearly, they're looking for depth at the position and another edge rusher. So if this guy pans out, he could potentially be Bud Dupree's replacement because from a cap perspective, and there's different maneuvers you can do with the cap to get space. TJ Watt's going to be the most expensive player in the National Football League on the defensive side of football. He's going to be the highest paid player. So do you want to allocate that much cap space to the outside linebacker position? Hopefully, if this kid pans out, you may not have to.
The other thing with Bud Dupree probably gone, he's going to have a chance to take that number 3 spot and audition for the job next year. He would be the man in waiting right away over Ola, over Tuzar Skipper to get that job if he can shine. I like it.
Let me just say that I never said I didn't like the pick. I said I didn't know the player, and I don't know a lot of these players, so that's nothing new. There's only one pick that I can remember that I said on air to anyone that was listening, what a stupid pick. And that would be a 6th-round long snapper from the Louisville named
I remember that.
Colin Halba.
Yeah,
When they selected a snapper in the 6th, I thought I was going to. They did what? They took who? That's the only time that I can remember in recent memory me saying, I can't stand that pick. And that was just because of the position. I had no idea who Colin Holba was. But at the same time, I'm with you, Brian. I trust this team. I trust this organization. I trust this scouting department to do the job, to get that, to have that inside information to go after a guy from Charlotte that no one else has heard of. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But Brian, I know you said you got to go. You have some work to do. But before you leave, I want to get your thoughts on their 2nd-round pick, their first pick of the draft. That'd be Chase Claypool. Were you a fan of that selection or not?
Oh, Canada is all I've got to say. I am loving this guy. And I tell you what, because Dave was putting him on the spot. He's like, thumbs up, thumbs down. I said, look, I need to find out. So I'm going to go like this. I think the arrow was pointing out. Give me some time. And he's like, well, all right, we're going to bust on you like you guys bust on me with Deontay Johnson. I'm like, no, you've got to give me a second. I'm not saying this is bad. All I want to do is know a little bit more. And everything I looked at, fell in love with this guy right away. I'm already thinking of that number 83 jersey with Claypool on the back, because that's what this guy's going to be wearing. And he is going to be a special player. 6'4" with that speed, 230, and a speed of a 4.42. And what I saw on tape on him, fantastic. So I'm really excited. And that entire time we were talking, I'm watching on a loop Alex Highsmith here. The Steelers put out a tweet or something, and I just clicked on it. It's him on a loop. It's not lackluster stuff. He really gets penetration and gets in there. He's got a nose. He doesn't get eaten up. So I'm really excited about both picks. So anybody that hates this pick so much, don't wear the jersey in 3 years when he's awesome.
And what number did you predict, Brian? He's always good for this. What did you predict for Claypool? 83.
I don't think anybody's wearing.
Is that wide receiver?
You're gonna give him Heath's number? Oh man,
he wears 83 now, and it's been a couple years, and if Ben does that crap like he did with Gentry last year, can't have 83. It's like, shut up.
You know what? Let me give
you
some egghead stuff that you guys will find like probably pretty boring. Just egghead stuff from watching film. When guys wear 83 and they're defensive guys, it's really hard to watch film because certain numbers you have in your head that those are offensive guys.
Well, he's talking about Clay. He's not talking about Highsmith. Oh, okay. He's talking about Claypool, the wide receiver.
Yeah, if Claypool wore 83, it'd be like, man,
I don't think he can. I don't think in the NFL you can as an outside linebacker wear like an 83.
No, I wish you could.
Think so.
I wish it was like college and you could have a kicker wearing 64. Just wear the number you want to wear.
It's really bad on film though. Like it really takes you like it takes you a few plays to go because you see certain numbers. So you just look at the position group. So if you see like a 64, you're just looking defensive line, O-line. You're not looking at anything else. But then when 64, if like a 64 was a corner, you'd just be completely confused.
Didn't the Steelers have a quarterback that wore 22?
Probably in 1920.
I think it was Bobby Lane. I think Bobby Lane wore 22.
Okay, I was going to say Dick Shiner, maybe him.
Dick Shiner.
Probably when they were the homestead.
That's an actual player, by the way.
He was the first quarterback for Chuck Noll.
Yes, Dick Shiner is an actual Pittsburgh Steelers player. You can look it up. I'm not just being funny. That's his name. Frank Webb is a made-up player. I made it up. There's a Ralph Webb, but I call him Frank. Frank Webb has been around, but Justice Joe 007 puts $10 in the tip jar. I'm sorry, $9.99, and we appreciate that for all that. But still, before you go, Brian, quick question. Yes. How does Highsmith tie in with this? In my opinion, when you're talking about training camp battles, the depth at outside linebacker is going to be one to watch. You have Adeniyi, you have Skipper, and then you have Highsmith. And those are to be behind TJ Watt and Bud Dupree. I don't think they're going to keep all of them. So who's the odd man out?
Tuzar Skipper's probably the odd man out.
Oh, you just broke the heart of Steeler fans everywhere.
We love these guys. And you know what? One of the reasons we love these guys is because, Jeff, we have so much we have to write about, so much we have to talk about in June, and we're highlighting guys like Tuzar Skipper and Duck Hodges, and we knew everything about those guys. And the reason we knew everything about those guys before training camp, because we had nothing else to talk about. So we were talking about these guys that had a training camp, a mini camp tryout, and made it through. So, I'm getting the all right, Lance.
I don't believe bad. Don't believe bad, listeners. He only likes Skipper because of his last name.
Oh, it's a great last name.
And he's thinking of Gilligan's Island, that he's the skipper. That's it. That's the only reason why he likes Skipper.
No, we talked about this guy ad nauseum because we have to know the names of these guys, and then we go crazy at the end of August. Like, this guy has to stick with the team. How could they cut him? Because I went crazy with Deontay Spencer. But at the end of the day, we're crying over a guy that was the 54th man on a 53-man roster and couldn't stick around and keeps getting cut. At the end of the day, that's not the guy you want starting for you.
Not at all. And see, Brian, I thought you learned from me. I don't know many names, and I get them wrong when I try to pronounce them. So I don't know many names outside the starters, and I get them wrong. And I just came up with the acronym DASH. Come on, man. You guys got to DASH. I mean, I know. Just call those guys DASH guys.
He's just a guy.
He's just a guy.
There you go.
He's a dash. He's fourth on the depth chart. And to your question, Jeff, I always look at it in terms of the 3 P's: pay, pedigree. He doesn't have the pedigree and performance. None of those guys have the performance, and they're not paid very well. So it falls down to pedigree. You're going to err on the 3rd round pick. You're going to give the 3rd round pick the opportunity to prove, which is the 4th P, that your evaluation is correct. What does Jeff always say? These guys do not want to be proven. And that's probably the 5th P, that they're wrong. So they're going to give the draft pick, the 3rd rounder, every opportunity to make them look good. And so I think you're right. I think Skipper is the odd man out because the pedigree just isn't high enough.
Well, I'm
subscribed. Gives us $1.99. Glad he's watching.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Yeah, I appreciate it. Buy some of your T-shirts that Jeff printed up.
Save that, Doug. You might need that.
I'm subscribing to the 3 L's, learning Lance lingo. So with that being said, I'm going to go bone up on some Lance lingo.
Oh my gosh, you're killing me tonight, Brian, with your euphemisms and everything. But let's get a grade from you real quick. Highsmith grade. What do you give it?
I'll give it a C+. All
right. That's not bad.
Yeah, that's the best we can do, but I'm giving it a thumb. I'm liking it.
All right, thumbs up. Thumbs up. Good talking to you, Brian. Go do some work, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
When you get a 75 grade, Jeff, that's enough to get a lecture from your mom when you come home. 75 is not good. That's dessert. Let's some more
let's
study.
Ask the people in the live chat here. I want to see what are the grades right now for the Highsmith, and don't give me the incomplete stuff. I'm a teacher. Okay, I don't want to say it's an incomplete because I don't know. I got to give a grade. You got to give a grade. Is it A through F? How are you grading it? You want to explain yourself? That's up to you. But so far we've got No.
We can't go P
this
or
is not
NP.
distance learning. Okay, this is
We can't whack the whole semester.
Okay. No. All right, so grades are coming in. A lot of C, C pluses, B plus, B. Some people are saying a lot of upside, so they're grading on that. That's fine. D plus, no Fs. I'm shocked there isn't anyone that's given him a failing grade yet.
I see you, Felicia, with C. We got a pyro.
I like what Kyle Smith says. Kyle Smith says, let's be honest, no one here actually knows.
I love Blake. I love Blake Literal, and I love that his last name is Literal, and he gave it an A plus. We got an F in there. We got an F grade in there.
Yeah, that's after I said it. Here we go. Snowman puts $5 in the tip jar. He says, what's the next pick for the Steelers? He's referring to day 3. They have 2 4th-round picks, no 5th-round picks, a 6th and a 7th. So if they don't make any trades, they're going to end up with 6 new players. That's it. So what do you think they do next, Lance?
I think they got to go inside linebacker. They have no depth at that position. I think they've got to go inside linebacker. And honestly, I think they've got to go out. I think they've got to go O-line. They're not young at that position. I love the acquisition of Wisniewski, but that's an old offensive line. I think they've got to get more athletic in the interior of that offensive line. But I think they've got to get out. I think they've got to get inside linebacker and safety. I think they've got to get some quality depth on that defense. When you look at the top 11 and you compare that defense across the National Football League, top 11, I mean, they're as talented as it gets. I mean, what do they have, like 7, 8 first-round draft picks on that defense? I mean, they're loaded top 11. But, man, if they have some injuries, there's some significant issues. But I don't rule out the fact that they might go out and get a free agent or two as well. They have to build the depth on that defense. So I'm looking at defense in this next couple of rounds.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Offensive line is definitely a need. Safety, I agree with you. Inside linebacker, I agree with you. Inside linebacker, though, like you said, might be an area where they go the free agent route. Kathy puts $2 in the tip jar and says, who's left for the offensive line? I think the Steelers, in my opinion, they've proven they can still find some pretty good offensive linemen later in later rounds. Day 3, obviously, is what we're looking at now. Do I have specific players in mind?
That, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Not a specific player, but 2, the fact that they're going to look for position flexibility. They're going to look for a guy that can play center and guard. I mean, they're going to look for guys that can play a variety of positions. If they take a tackle, they're going to think that tackle could play tackle and guard. They're looking to build depth and youth in that offensive line. The offensive line has to get better. You know, during this quarantining and staying at home and sheltering in place, I've been watching a ton of run snaps. And it's just frustrating to see how ineffective they are running inside zone and just how much of an upgrade at the guard position they needed with Ramon Foster, and how Ramon Foster's lack of athleticism really impacted them in the run game. So they need an injection of youth there. If they can find a bridge for when Marquise Pouncey retires, because Marquise Pouncey is going to retire soon. He said that he does not want to play after Ben Roethlisberger retires. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff. Pouncey is about year 9, close to year 10. And Pouncey's been there a while.
Well, he was a rookie in the 2010 season when they went to the Super Bowl and he got injured and didn't get to play in Super Bowl 45. Right. So, yeah, so he'll be going into his 10th season.
I mean, that offensive line is not young, so whoever they take, it's going to be position flexibility. Think of a BJ Finney type guy that could play both guard spots or a center spot. Think of a Filer that could play a tackle or could bump into guard. Think of a guy that can play multiple positions, because, you know, they've got to inject some youth into that offensive line. But I think they're going inside linebacker.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they play this out and if they make any trades. That was my bold prediction, was that they were going to make one trade. I was really expecting, to be honest with you, I was expecting them to trade their 3rd round pick, move back, and acquire some more draft picks. But instead, they go with Hightower from Charlotte, outside linebacker. Not a very well-known player, but I'm sure we'll learn more about him in the coming days and weeks. Now, a lot of people, this is what I love, and I hate this about the draft. You love it because everyone's there, everyone's focused on it. We had over 200,000 people view the site today because they're just excited for the Steelers to make a pick. But at the same time, you have that love the pick right underneath it, hate it. This was horrible. Lance, in your opinion, how long do you have to give a rookie class or a rookie player until you think you can give them an honest judgment of what they're able to do?
I'm going to say 3 seasons. If you're an absolute stud, it'll show prior to that. Or if you're a Juju type, or if you're a Marquise Pouncey type,
or a TJ Watt,
you're a TJ Watt or a Ben Roethlisberger, like it'll show earlier than that. But I think 3 years is the appropriate time in an evaluation, because think of it this way: the CBA says 3 years. The CBA says 3 years. We're going to agree as a players' union and the league that 3 years is enough time to evaluate a player before you give a player a long-term contract. So I'm going to agree with that. I think it's 3 years. I think anything sooner than that is a little premature. So, but patience isn't part of Steeler Nation, and it's not a part of any nation in any National Football League. Well, there's only one team that has a nation, and that's Steeler. Actually, it's Steeler Universe. Everyone else has nations. It's Steeler Galaxy. So 3 years, I think, is the appropriate amount of time to evaluate a draft pick.
And so that means that one Terrell Edmonds is going into that critical year.
But I'm being called out by Reginald Rivers, who said, Lance, you gave up on Benny Snell after one season. Well,
he's right. He's
thanks
right.
for the call out, Reginald. Right. You are correct. But let's just say this. Here's my caveat. You should take 3 years to evaluate, but sometimes there are certain physical traits that stand out that you can't ignore. For instance, and I always like to give these analogies. If you're going out with a young lady and she hits on your best friend, are you going to give her 3 months? Or are you going to kick her to the curb after that date? My point.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know Benny Snell was hitting on someone else's friend. Anyways, some people are suggesting possibility of bringing Mark Barron back at a cheaper price. He's been on the free agent market. No one has signed him. Would you be interested in that, considering you said that inside linebacker depth is dire? I agree with you 100%. I think it is. What would you think about that?
No objections there. And Snowman is giving me the business. Give it up, Lance. Just because I say 3 years, and I'm trying to clean it up for myself. Just because I say 3 years.
Saving face.
And what does Mike Tomlin say about the NFL? What is the NFL? It's the moving train, right? It's trying to jump onto the moving train, right? Just because I say 3 years does not mean you're going to get 3 years. And so you have to prove it as soon as you can. And so you have to make an impression on coaches in games and in practice immediately. And I would love if Barron came back. He knows the defense. If you can get him back on the cheap, it adds depth at the inside linebacker position, and he can play in sub-package defense.
So this is something I wanted to bring up anyways, and these shows are not going to be as long as our typical shows, but someone asked the question, Jeff, how big is the gap between the Ravens and the Steelers now? Well, let me first start off by saying that in 2019, even without Ben Roethlisberger, I don't think the gap was as far as people might believe. You have to think back to week 5 when they took that game to overtime and probably should have won that game. I think it was safe to say if Ben plays in that game, heck, even if Mason Rudolph plays in that entire game, that was a game he left with a concussion, they might win that football game. Nonetheless, they don't. And here we are. The Ravens seem to pick every other time I look at the television. It's the Ravens are picking. I mean, they've gotten a million compensatory picks. So Lance, what are your thoughts on that in terms of the gap between the Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens?
Well, I'll take every opportunity to knock the Cincinnati Bungles. So I think the gap between the Steelers and the Ravens is about the length of one of Joe Burrow's fingers. And since he has small hands, the gap isn't very big. I don't think the gap is huge. If you look at that first game that they played, like Jeff said, once they got kind of acclimated to what Baltimore was trying to do offensively, they really beat up Lamar Jackson. Before that playoff game against Tennessee, I thought they played Lamar Jackson better than almost any defense in the National Football League. They were right there in that game. The corner from Baltimore made a fantastic play, causing the fumble with Juju. But they were right there in that game. And I don't think the gap is great. I think they just have more depth at certain positions than the Steelers. But I think the Steelers defense is better. Their offense is better, but I think with Big Ben back, Bionic Big B, I think the gap is really closed between the two teams. But I would say that Baltimore slightly better.
Okay, so Caden puts $1.99 in the tip jar. Appreciate that. And he says, I think what Steelers should go after Fournette. And we talked about that on the last show, and I think that would be a good move. I kind of want to go off on a tangent in a little bit that's tied to this Baltimore Steelers thing, okay? Everyone that the Steelers picks, there are people that will say this is a horrible pick, it's a wasted pick, it was a reach, it was this, it was that, it was the other, whatever. Now all of a sudden, all these Steeler fans, man, where is your pride? Okay, I'm going to say these names. Maybe I should comment. The Ravens easily beat us. The Ravens easily beat us in the draft so far. Queen's a monster, and JK will run with a chip on his shoulder because we passed on him. Who says he even gets the football that much? I mean, there is Mark Ingram there, unless they cut him and I didn't know about it. You're wrong, Lance. The Ravens are killing us with young talent. Ravens ownership was so pissed off at the early exit, lighting a fire under people with all the summer. Come on, people. You all are killing me. Wow. Killing me. You forgetting that the Pittsburgh Steelers have an elite, I will say it again, an elite defense. Elite. Even without this third round pick. Okay? Elite. Have we not talked about the improvements on the offense? Yeah, you want to talk about guard. Okay, move Filer to guard if you have to. You can still probably get a tackle, or you have some tackles that are, some people like the tackles that they have. We just talked earlier on the show about after they drafted Chase Claypool, how they have a legit 4 wide receivers now, not to mention their 2 tight ends. And yes, running backs, we know that the history is there, but come on, Steeler fans. What is going on when you all are sitting there saying, woe is me, the Ravens are so good, look at their draft. Come on. I live in Maryland, people. I have to deal with these idiots every single day of my life. Do not fold up like a cheap lawn chair and just say, well, it's been fun. Good luck, Ravens, in 2020. I'm calling this one a season. No. The Steelers will be fine if Ben Roethlisberger's fine. Period.
Wow.
That's it.
Preach, Reverend Dr. Hartman. Preach.
I'm sorry. I can't. I live here. I deal with these morons every day. I can't stand when Steeler fans act like this. And they act like, woe is me. We took this guy, never heard of him in the 3rd round, so we stink, and they're so good. And I knew who J.K. Dobbins was, so therefore I'm upset because I didn't get – come on, people. This franchise has 6 Super Bowls. Act like it. Sorry. Go ahead, Lance.
Wow. Preach, Reverend.
Sorry.
Let the congregation say amen. Preach, Reverend Hartman. Preach. The good Reverend Dr. Hartman, Southern.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Preach, Reverend Hartman. I love it. And this is rare when the good Reverend Dr. Jeff Hartman makes his way to the pulpit and says, wow. I love it when you go. I love it, Jeff, when you preach. You got anything else for the listeners?
No. That's it for now. It's gonna come back, I'm sure, because the Ravens have like 50 picks in this draft. So
I love
there
when
you go.
gives his sermon and he lets y'all know when the good Reverend, amen. Wow. Way to go. See, it's late. It's late in the East Coast. It's like midnight. It's the next day, actually. It's Friday for me. It's Saturday for Jeff. The good Reverend Dr. Hartman is preaching. It's a call to the altar, Steeler fans. It's a call to the altar. And I like Sean McMahon. I can't agree with that entirely, but I like the sentiment. And I do think when Ben Roethlisberger is back, Bionic Big B, and we're anticipating that Ben Roethlisberger is going to come back and be who he is. And with Ben Roethlisberger in the fold, I mean, it changes everything. Everything changes. That's a very different football team. But Jeff, man, I love it when you go, Reverend Dr. Hartman. Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, it doesn't happen often. But I'm sorry. There are some times where I just can't take it. I can't take it. We're still fans. That's what people need to remember. Like, we're still fans. I'm not paid by the Steelers. Okay. I'm here to give my opinion on what I think. And I'll tell you what, I trust the Steelers. I do. They haven't given me a lot of reasons to not trust them. If they're going to spend a 3rd round pick on this guy, they see something that I don't. Guess why? Because I haven't seen anything of this guy. I don't know who he is. Just because I know who J.K. Dobbins is because he played. That guy fell for a reason.
And I love Rodney Lyles. Passer Hartman. That's how you spell it. P-A-S-S-A. Passer Hartman. Passer Hartman. Reverend Dr. Passer Hartman. I love it. I love Jeff. I love when my inner chi passes to you and you can say everything that I'd like to say and I could be the good guy that does not have to be the hater. I love it when we can switch hats. It feels so good.
Well, if you think my sentiment wasn't hating. My sentiment was just frustration. It was frustration with the fan base that sometimes can be so spoiled and so fickle at the same time. I don't get it. Let's just see how it plays out. There were people last year, Sutton Smith. Everyone was like, this guy's going to be the next James Harrison. Didn't even make the team.
Who?
Sutton Smith. Who? Exactly.
Dash. Who? Dash. I mean, that's the tradition in Pittsburgh, man. And I love it. We're not draft guys, but I love it in Pittsburgh. And I love that about fan bases in the National Football League is everybody gets so excited about the unknown. And it just gives you hope and it gives you something to look forward to. But, unfortunately, I mean, probably 60% of these guys get cut. I love that. I'll let you read that, Jeff.
Muhammad Ali says Jeff's 26 kids are scared in the corner right now. No, my 5 kids are all asleep. And that didn't wake him up either. I got one of them across the hall. I was hoping it didn't. He didn't. So my son's still asleep. But still, hey, the Steelers made the pick. I trust the Steelers. And we'll see. So here we go. We got $2 in the tip jar from Jay. He says, do you think Minkah will separate himself even more? Yes. A year in the system, a year with Terrell Edmonds, basically, I think that he's going to take a step forward. And you might say, what does that even look like? It's going to look amazing, is what it's going to look like. So I think that, I don't know. We'll see.
I want to give a big shout out to Muhammad. I don't know if he's celebrating Ramadan, but, happy Ramadan to him if he's celebrating Ramadan. So happy Ramadan to him. But, yeah, I think, and that's the one thing is with Minkah. Minkah's the best pick in the first round. So the Steelers draft is already excellent. They've got the best player in the first round. It's Minkah Fitzpatrick with the 18th pick in the draft. And he's only going to get better. Ben Roethlisberger changes all of this. And so you do have to be more positive than I typically am. And some of this you have to look at it in terms of, the position groups that they're trying to replace, bolster, and look at the roster and what you think it'll look like in 2021. We think that this pick is probably a bud to breed replacement. But what will happen next year if he doesn't play well, they'll draft another guy. And that's what the NFL is. And, nobody will remember this guy. He'll be on a rookie contract and that'll be it.
Well, the funny thing is are people looking at the Browns picks and the Ravens picks and, oh man, look at their draft picks, so great. Maybe people aren't looking at Pittsburgh and saying, oh man, I can't believe their draft, that looks great. You know what? Let them overlook them. Because in my lifetime, when the Steelers are not the favorite team, when the Steelers are the underdogs, when the Steelers are no one's giving them a chance, that's typically, in my opinion, when they play their best. So that's fine. Mike Tomlin loves to play that card, man. He loves to play that card. He lives off of that card.
The good reverend is hot. That's the call to the altar. When he's calling you to the altar to confess your sports sins. So if you have a confession to make before we conclude the program, please make the altar call and confess your sports, particularly your Pittsburgh Steelers sports sins. Just confess that you didn't think that the Steelers were going to win that big game, and they did. I know all of you guys have some guilt out there. You thought they were going to lose to this team, but they didn't, and they actually won. You thought they were going to lose to the Patriots a couple of years ago. And what do? Joe Hayden gets the interception. You could feel guilty. And the Reverend good Dr. Jeff Hartman is trying to let you relieve all of that.
Get it out. I got it out. I'm good. So we have a lot of we have a lot of shows coming up. I don't know if Lance will be with us tomorrow on Saturday, but I'm hoping to have a similar format.
I'm here.
All right, he's all in. I like that. I hope we're having a similar format today or tomorrow, Saturday, that we had today for day 2. And I really like how Brian and Dave came on prior to the pick. They then went into who could be available. They said the pick, and then Lance and I, maybe someone else came back on. What's so funny, Lance? What are you laughing at?
Muhammad Ali said, I have a confession to make.
I'll put it up there.
The guy that thought Artie was a good pick. See,
it's okay. It's okay. We've all done it.
Liberating. You got that off your chest. You let me give you a confession that I had for the Steelers. I thought the Steelers would never win a world championship with Bill Cowher as the head coach. After watching them lose AFC championship games in every which way but loose, I never thought they would win a championship with Bill Cowher as the coach. I was absolutely done. I was just convinced if they got to the AFC championship game, somehow he would figure out a way to lose the game. And after they lost to the Patriots in 2001, I was in the dumps. I just had no faith, no belief that the chin would bring them to a ring.
Yeah, and he did. And he did. Here we go. John Trott. We'll get one more in here. He says, puts $2 in the tip jar. Thank you guys very much for all your contributions. He said, what are the chances Ulysses Gilbert III takes Williams' spot? I don't think he takes his spot. I think he could still be, because he is very athletic. He is very fast when he's healthy. And I read an article recently about him rehabbing his back. He should be good to go for 2020. Maybe he's that special sub-package linebacker that they would put in there if they take Williams off the field. So maybe they have that in-house. We'll see. No one really knows. So there you go.
It's between the ears with him because that young man is extremely athletic.
Yes. So, hey, fingers crossed. Maybe, again, this is a situation like Brian talked about at the beginning of the show. The Steelers are up to date with his rehab. They know what he can do. They've seen him in practices. They've met with him. He's been in their system for a whole year. So if they don't take an inside linebacker, maybe it's because they say, well, we don't really need inside linebacker because we have Ulysses Gilbert. We really like him. We think he could be that guy for us. Those are things that we're not privy to. That's just fact. So there you go.
And I agree with Darwin Nolan. There was no way that the Steelers could have beaten the 2001 Patriots team. They were cheating.
I'll never forget Bettis' quote after that game where he said, it's like they knew the plays before we even ran them.
And they did know the play.
Yep.
That was in fact. So you want me to close it out, Jeff?
Yeah, let's close it out. It's been a day, and then we'll see everyone back here tomorrow.
And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Go Steeler Nation.
Amen. We'll see you tomorrow.